Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video, I'm going to discuss the latest example of the government blatantly funneling public money, taxpayer money, directly to their friends and associates for absolutely no return to the public. And wonder if it's not so much mere incompetence, but actual, genuine, intended daylight robbery. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So yet again, we've seen in the news this week of an absolutely enormous government contract, huge, paid for with, of course, our taxpayer money, being given to an associate of a government minister with absolutely none of the procurement procedures or rules being followed at all. And interestingly, I had a number of comments, because I had to talk about this earlier this week as well, and I had a number of comments in that recent video asking if in this country we actually had rules for spending public money. Because it seems like we don't, to be fair. Yes, we do. The government are just not following them. There are legal challenges afoot, but these things can take time. And the government will try and defend it by claiming that the emergency nature of COVID means the procurement has to change. Naturally, of course, this is bogus. I talked recently about the contract given to associates of Dominic Cummings that was agreed in early March. The money was paid before the emergency was declared in the UK. So they tried to claim, it's to do with the COVID, emergency COVID. No, because no. You agreed this contract in early March. But also there was no paperwork for it at all. They were sniffing around. People were sniffing around wondering why this money had been paid out for. There was no paperwork until June. So in June, they retroactively created the paperwork for it. So there hadn't been any documentation for this large amount of money that the government had spent. Our money. Not Conservative Party money, they can do what they want there, but our taxpayer money. Because they made up the documentation for it months later when, as I say, people were sniffing around to find out where the money had gone. Now, the latest example, and this is the latest in a long line of examples, is a £252 million contract being signed with a company who paid an advisor to Liz Truss, who's a cabinet government minister. They paid that advisor to advise them as well. In other words, they paid to get that contract. The contract was awarded, as with billions of other pounds of other contracts going out, directly to the company, Ianda Capital on this occasion, without going out for tender. There was no, we need this, throw it out there, see what companies come back with. In addition, and this is also a typical feature of these things, the company had absolutely zero experience in supplying medical PPE, which is what the contract was for. Now, we're told this week that 150 million of that £252 million contract, 150 million of it has been completely wasted. Not spent imprudently, actually written off, wasted on face masks that can't be used by the intended recipients, the NHS. They're totally unsuitable. And we were told months ago by Dominic Raab, who was filling in for Boris Johnson while he was struck down with COVID, that the reason the government were acting so slowly on acquiring PPE and other coronavirus-related services was because, we've got to take the time to examine all the companies. You've got all these procedures to follow, and also to make sure that the company we choose is able to deliver the goods and the services that we want, and to check that we'll be getting what we want, because, we don't want to be spending money and not getting what we want. And of course, it was all lies. I mean, we knew it was lies at the time, but now it's obvious, because they obviously weren't doing all that, because they didn't put these contracts out for tender. So therefore, there was no scrutiny of the companies. Not once has any one of these companies, which belongs to either a friend of the Tories or a donor to the Tory party, not once have they actually delivered the goods or service that we needed. It's simply blatant corruption. It's even worse than I thought. Back in March, April, the way I saw it back in March and April is the government knew they needed to act. They'd already been told before the emergency happened, and they didn't. So they then needed to act really quickly. We knew that there were companies who could supply the goods and services that we wanted. but we weren't giving them contracts. Now, at the time, the way it looked is, well, okay, yeah, that company could supply us, but they're not giving us any kickbacks. No, we'll give it to this company because they say they'll donate 2 million quid to us. So we'll give them a 300 million quid contract, something like that. And it just looked like they wanted to, where they could, give the contracts to people who gave a bit back, you know, a bit of a backhander. The same with testing services, of course, you know. But I thought we'd still be at least getting the goods or services. More slowly, it's not really good enough. We're wasting more money on it than we should be doing. But, you know, we'd get it. It would take longer, be less effective use of public money. Still something to complain about. Of course, people were dying. But nowhere near as bad as reality. But in reality, they've not just been favouring the company that gives the Conservative Party kickbacks, but they weren't even bothering to check that they could actually supply the goods and services. I mean, the companies have been totally ill-suited. Literally billions has been completely wasted. Billions of pounds has been spent on things that we have not got and we're not going to get. So it's not just not great value. We're actually getting nothing back in return for quite a lot of that money. And then I saw this on Twitter. Obviously, it's a piss take, you know, tongue-in-cheek, bit of gallows humour. And it says, I don't think this government is interested in being re-elected. They are the billionaire version of the seller on the street corner with a suitcase, trousering cash as fast as they can until the copper comes round the corner. And I just thought about it. Obviously, it's a bit of a joke. And I thought, is it? Because actually, it fits. Because here's the thing. We're not getting these services. We're not getting these goods. We haven't got our tracing app. We haven't got our world-beating testing system. We're not testing anyone. Government minister recently tried to say we're testing over 300,000 people a day. No, we're not. It was 52,000, looking at the government figures, the actual official figures. 52,000 people. Just blatant lies. But it's not just the lie, it's the fact, why aren't we testing 300,000? You say that the reason they're saying we're testing 300,000 days because they know we should be. Why are we not? Why are we not capable of doing that? They talk about, capacity. Why is capacity always way, way higher than the number actually being tested? Even at the peak, when there were far more needing testing. And we're about to come to a point where, again, far more are going to need testing. We haven't got that capacity. We've paid for it, but we haven't got it. PPE for hospital. The government kept coming out with, you know, figure after figure. We've supplied this much PPE, this much PPE. Again, it's even worse than it was at the time. At the time, we knew that they were, for example, counting a pair of gloves as two bits of PPE. Use them at the same time. You know, we don't have people like Michael Jackson working on the NHS. They don't just have one glove. And they were counting bin bags as PPE. But now we know it's even worse than that. So when they proudly proclaim how much PPE they've supplied, they are counting in those figures things that couldn't be used, were unsuitable. A load of the PPE that was supplied that was out of date, you know, doctors were noticing it came with expiry dates on the packets. And it was just a sticker, and they peeled back the sticker and it had the real expiry date, which was years ago. The government now have been telling clinics and hospitals to get rid of them. Because it was just a PR stunt. So quite a lot of the PPE they say they supplied, they didn't. I want to know what is the real number of items of PPE that they've actually supplied, and I want someone to find that out and to compare it to the number they said. It's going to be a hell of a difference. So yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this actually could be true. Genuinely, this could be true. This could actually literally be a case of the government honestly trousering as much cash as they can. They're on the take. They're just trying to get as much cash as they can, as quickly as they can, under cover of COVID. And so when they're gone, maybe they genuinely, I just thought, you know, they're too, and I still think they probably are. They're just too arrogant to believe they won't carry on getting away with it. But maybe they think they won't get away with it at some point. But they'll have funneled so much cash into their own bank accounts and their mates that it won't matter. And you think to yourself, well, surely criminal charge and so on. When was the last time you saw a senior government minister chucked in jail for something like this. It doesn't happen, does it? It doesn't happen. Ultimately, even when it's found to be unlawful, because, you know, the government has been quite a few times told that it has spent money unlawfully. No one went to jail. No actual government minister even had charges pressed against them, because there aren't any. You know, the government is told as if it's some nebulous thing. It's a group of people, but you know, the law behaves as if it's just this nebulous thing. The government broke the law. There'll be a court verdict that the government broke the law. Consequences, bugger all. If there's any consequences at all, do you know what it is? The government will be fined. That's more of our taxpayer money being used to pay the fine. No actual ministers, even if they knew they were doing wrong, will have charges filed against them. So I can actually, even though I don't take it super seriously, I can actually believe a scenario where they are doing this. They are just pocketing as much cash as they can, knowing full well that the worst that will happen to them is that their little shopping spree on the country's finances will end sooner than they would like. That's probably it. That's the worst that could happen to them. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I will see you later.